DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Anytime anyone gets the chance to say, I am the very best at this on the planet, can you imagine what that feels like? Well, our guest, Hamish Kerr, knows exactly what it feels like because Hamish won the gold medal, the high jump, as you know, in Paris at the Olympics. Thank you so much for coming into the studio. You are, right now, the very best high jumper on the planet. There's 7 billion or so people on the planet. How does that feel, mate? That's just a crazy thing to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Marty. It's great to be here. But yeah, it's a very weird feeling. I think, yeah, if you told the child Hamish that he would be the best high jumper in the world, he wouldn't have believed you. And it's pretty special now being in that position to know what it took to get here, and also sort of knowing that, you know, everything I had when I was a child actually got me here, and I definitely had to back it, but it was real cool. So yeah, it's a very weird feeling, and one I hopefully will continue to feel for the next few years.
You're so humble about it, and you know, do you in your quieter moments, you know, when you celebrate, do you? I mean, like I don't know how overwhelming it must be, but I mean, obviously, it must be an adrenaline rush like no other to actually be standing there in that stadium at that moment knowing, my God, it's me.
Yeah. I mean, look, it is, and it's so weird because you just go through these waves of emotion and they keep, I mean, are still happening, right? Like, you know, you sort of sit there and stop for a second and realize, you know, where you're at and what you've just done, and it sort of all comes flooding back. But yeah, in that moment, I mean, it was just so special. Like, obviously everyone saw me run around the field, and that was me sort of letting off steam a wee bit. But also, yeah, it's just so cool as well. Like, just being able to celebrate with the the family and the friends and all the people that I had over there as well was really cool.
This is what it's about, ladies and gentlemen, and this is a really heavy thing. I'm not going to put it around my neck because I believe with these kind of things that the only person who wears is the person who actually earned it. But it's beautiful. It is gold. It is really heavy.
It was a little bit shinier as well, but it's
everyone
a little bit
gets a touch of it. Everyone wants. It's forever, isn't it? It's got to be life changing, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, I think that probably I won't fully realize how life-changing it is until the next few years, and I think it's one of those ones where, you know, I'm so stuck in the moment right now that it does actually feel a little bit normal, but also, you know, I recognize the fact that life is different now. I mean, you know, so many more people do recognize me in the street, and and I think every time I bring the medal out, I think just the effect that it has on people is pretty special.
I tell you what, it's one of those kooky kind of things. It's like when we see dolphins and things like it just makes you happy. Seeing this makes you happy. I mean, I've shown it to everyone here, and everyone smiles and everyone wants to touch it. It just makes you feel really good.
I don't think it doesn't matter how old you are. Like, everyone remembers watching the Olympics when they're a child, and I think for me, fundamentally, that's what I love about the sport is my inspiration that I have for the next generation. And so I think, you know, you go further than that, and you go, everyone at some point in their life thought that was something that they could do. They entertained the possibility, and so to bring that out, it's actually so special. You know, I think for me, what's actually funny is, you know, the kids love it obviously, but it's seeing like the old people, you know, when you pull it out and you know, they'll get their phones out and they'll try and work out how they can take a photo and everything. It's just beautiful. Like, I just love it.
So I want to go back obviously through the qualifier, just excruciating nature of all of that. But you know, you've climbed Everest once. And I think about this with, you know, guys like Michael Campbell who won the US Open.
Yeah, for sure.
Once you've done something at that level and you are the best at that moment on the planet doing this, how do you get back to that again?
That's the golden question, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's tough. Like, I think that, you know, we're very good at winning the next big thing. And I think as athletes, you know, you're always trying to, you know, as much as you say that you're wanting to get better and jump higher and, you know, or have all these nice sort of furry things, like, at the end of the day, you want to win, right? And so you get to a point where you've won the biggest thing that you can win in sport, and suddenly you do have to think about what's next. And so, yeah, for me, that's something that we're still working through. I can't say I can sit here today and know the exact answer to that, but I think as well, like, you kind of have to fundamentally come back to what you love about the sport and what really gets you up in the morning. And if it is still the event that you want to do, then continue on with it, but also, like, be realistic with the fact that maybe the feelings won't be there. But I think for me, definitely getting back into training even now, like, I'm starting to get itchy again. And I know for me, like, the big thing is that I want to jump higher. And so, yeah, ultimately, I know that I've still got a lot more to give in that space.
What is more important to you now, setting records and maybe setting a world record, or winning events like this and continuing to win?
Yeah, I think there's a mix. Like I think that for the next few years, definitely, it's about jumping as high as possible, and that was something that we did a lot of this year. We weren't really worried about how much I was winning. That was just a product of the fact that we were going there for specific outcomes, and those outcomes were generally technical or height based, and so. You kind of look at that and you realise that ultimately, if you want to win the high jump competition, you have to jump the highest. So that's what you're focused on. Like I want to jump as high as possible, and then also nowadays it's been able to play with the fact that I am contending for all those wins, and so it's sort of adding on how can you make the crowd feel and bring them along for that journey. So yeah, I think there's some pretty cool little projects that we've got over the next few years. But ultimately, if I'm not jumping high, then none of that stuff can happen. So that's the goal.
We've talked a number of times in the past, and I've said this to you, that you use the wee word a hell of a lot. and look, to me, it's glorious that you do, because it's an acknowledgement of all the people that are around you, that they don't jump, but they're there with you as you're jumping, and you don't get to do what you do without all of those people. I love the fact that you continually acknowledge it, and it's been a part of every single interview. Yeah,
and look, like some people on my team absolutely hate it. They think that I need to take a bit more ownership, and I think in the past probably I did. I think that I was able to hide behind my team a wee bit, especially in years gone by when I didn't quite achieve the goals I wanted to. But I think now I'm able to sit there and know that at the end of the day I'm the one who has to jump, and I have to really. The buck stops with me. If I don't perform, then it is on me. But at the same time, I wouldn't be here without the guys that are in my corner, and so I'm just eternally grateful for what they do.
You owned that moment. Let's go back to the qualifiers. I can't remember what it was. It was 220 or something.
220. Yeah.
It was a gimme for you. It was a gimme, and you miss it twice.
Yeah.
And at that moment, all of the training, all of the years, all of the dreams, all of the efforts of everyone else. How heavy was that weighing on you? What I want to understand is how you were able to free your mind at that moment and go, okay, there's only one thing that's important here. It's that bar, and it's me getting over that bar. How you divorce all of that negativity out of your mind, all of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't to begin with, as people can kind of probably see with the jumps that I did in the first two attempts. The first attempt was a bad attempt. That just kind of happens, and then that second attempt, there was just so much stuff weighing me down. Just terror, essentially. I was just so scared I was just so scared to be there, and I kind of had this sort of overarching message just kind of running through my mind, like maybe I'm not good enough, and maybe it doesn't matter how much prep we do, how good I am jumping going into a major event. I mean, I was going off failing to qualify for the final in the past two world champs, so there was definitely like a bit of a history there.
That's a demon, isn't it?
Which is a real demon, yeah. And so I think for me, that just all started coming flooding back. But the problem is that in the past, we could kind of tie the reason that happened to poor preparation and various other things. But this time around, like, we'd nailed it. And so going into that, and then ultimately, being faced with that third attempt, I was ready to throw in the towel. Like it was one of those ones where if I hadn't gone that third attempt, I probably would have just gone on with my life and picked something else up. But I think
sliding doors moment.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what got me back to it was a few things. I mean, there was mainly my coach. I was able to just at that moment, like I didn't really trust anything other than what he was telling me. For that third attempt, like I just pretty much put my life in his hands and was just like, am I going to do this? Like that's literally what I asked him. I was like, can I do this? Like just pleading with him essentially. Wow. And he was just like, yeah, of course you can. Like just relax, like reset, don't try and do anything because your body's going to know what to do. Just get back in the zone, do your breathing. I wasn't doing any of my breathing work or anything between those first two jumps, which is something I do a lot of. Just to sort of bring me back down and center myself. So sort of just try and do the things that you've done all year. But also I think one of the things which is quite interesting that really helped as well was that was the first time I was world number one in that competition. And because of that, a couple of the boys were trying to get in my head, and I kind of didn't. I kind of didn't realize it, so I was getting flustered because I was obviously scared. I didn't want to be there. I wanted to get to the final, but I hated qualifying. I still hate it. Qualifying is terrible. it's the worst thing in the world.
Well, there's no win, because if you get there, if you qualify, well, you're meant to anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And it's kind of like, it's just a high jump comp, which is a means to another high jump comp.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do a high jump comp. I want to jump really high and win. And so that's kind of the product of that high jump comp, but you don't get that in qualifying. So these a couple of the boys were sort of niggling away, and in that third attempt, as I was sitting there waiting for that third attempt, one of my really good mates, who was also jumping in the same pool as me, he kind of alluded me to that. He was like, "Do you realize like those guys are they're like messing with you?" And those were a couple of like the guys who were doing it, some guys who I consider some of the best guys in the world. And I think for me, it almost actually gave me the confidence to know that like shit, they're actually scared of me.
No, that's what I was going to say. You're scaring them. That's why they're doing it.
And so and that almost flipped that switch, because it was like I went from being scared and feeling like I was hunted to the hunter. And so it was like, wow, okay, so this guy has, he's got some global medals.
You're in his head.
And all he is worried about is what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And so that was almost just the validation I needed. I mean, it didn't even matter that I wasn't going to get over that 220. It was like, well, like, of course I'm going to get over it, because I'm going to beat this guy, because he's like, as soon as in a high jump you think about other people, it's such a personal thing. I mean, you're the only one jumping at any given moment. It's not like a head-to-head sport where you have to beat your component or your competitor. The competitor is the bar. And so as soon as you're thinking about the other guys, you're gone. And this was something that I saw as a real threat to winning that medal. And so, for me, it was like, sweet. Like, if he's thinking that, then that gives me the validation I need to go and clear this third attempt. And so obviously did that, and the rest is history.
The other thing is that it's a real nuts event, in that, you don't get, and because I don't know why I'm so dumb. I've watched it so many times, but I just, I didn't actually sort of put hang on a second, I got to wait because there's a track, there's guys running around and doing all of that while you're doing it. It's not like you get a clean piece of the stadium just to go ahead with. There's chaos all around you while you're doing this.
Oh, it's messy, and that's something that everyone, the first time they ever come to an athletics meet, especially globally, in those qualifying rounds, it's hectic. There's just so many things going on, and people just go like, how do you focus, and like what's going on? But I suppose that's the thing. I mean, I love that. I love the energy. I love the crowd. If they were all just focused on high jump and only high jump, then it would get a bit flat, right? Like, I mean, it's a big stadium to try and fill, and then if there's only one person jumping every minute, there's kind of not always action going on, especially within the high jump. But if you kind of have all these other things going on around you, it's just riding those waves and feeling the energy. But obviously, it's pretty tough when you feel like you're in a bit of a bad way, which I was in the qualifying.
You win, and look, and go back and watch it again on YouTube, people. It's just glorious. You win that moment, and I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at you thinking, there's a cloud is lifted here. You were springing, like you're just springing up and down. Yep. You did a lap of honour. Yeah. You got a silver fern on your chest. Your beloveds are in the crowd with your coach, and that. It's just, how overwhelming is that?
Yeah, it's funny, because it's like, that was the dream, right? Like we went there to medal, and we went there to jump. We'd kind of identified that if I was going to jump 236, I'd do pretty well, and so that was sort of the goal. And you do that and you win, and so part of me is kind of like, cool, that's what we wanted to do. But also, seeing the reaction of especially my family, them being in the crowd, and like they were just over the moon. They just couldn't believe it. So I think for me, like in that moment, just being so overwhelmed, like it was actually really cool to be able to almost rely on them for my like emotional compass,
right,
and sort of see the fact that they were just like, like afterwards, obviously went round to theirs and just was able to kind of chill, and like I felt like they were just bouncing off the walls, just like they'd won the gold, and I just kind of sat in the corner, just like staring at it around my neck, just in shock. But it's just such a super cool thing, and I think as well, you go back to the qualifying, like I wouldn't be in that position if I hadn't had that third attempt, and I think that's sort of where I look at it. It's the fact that I had to actually beat that demon of not qualifying, and the way that I did it was actually the hardest way possible. But ultimately, that meant then that jump off, like I'd been to hell and back. I knew what I was doing, and so I knew that I could back myself to get over it in that moment.
Does it change you as a person in that you get so much confidence from this? There's nothing that you're looking at in your life that you can't do?
Oh, yeah, probably a little bit, to be honest. Like I think definitely, I've been saying yes to a lot of stuff at the moment, and I've been quite busy, and there's definitely some things there that have been pretty, and probably in the past, certain people I've met or just kind of run into through going to various events, like you do pinch yourself a wee bit and go like, I didn't really feel like I was probably at that level anymore, in the past, but now I definitely feel like it's it's pretty cool to just be able to know that you can pick up the phone and pretty much chat to anyone, and they're pretty keen to chat to you.
Course,
so it is quite cool. But
it's an elite level, and that's what's thoroughly deserved, because, as I say, you're the best on the planet at this. So do you get rich from it? Do you cash in from it? And why the hell not if not?
Yeah, no, we do. Like I think athletics, probably one of its sort of fundamental flaws is that a lot of money's hidden. There's a lot of money that does get dished out that a lot of people probably don't realise. And especially, I mean, over in Europe, it's a much bigger sport, and so we have professional contracts with shoe brands and some really good stuff happening with all the comps that we do overseas. And so for me, the next 4 years, I will definitely be able to leverage what I've done.
Good for you.
Which is really good. And it's getting to a point now. It's cutthroat. I mean, if you're not in the top sort of 3 or 4 guys in the world, then you're sort of breaking even most years. But I think for me now, I'm in a position where I will be sort of setting up for the future a bit.
Fantastic. And so the in-between times, I think of all kinds of things, because Mr. Pessimism comes out again. I think, okay, and I'm standing there in 4 years' time at the Olympics and I fail. What does that do to me? Do I have a fear of that? If I've won it once, do I have to win it again? Do you think about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, we're only human, right? Like, I mean, I'm not a high jump robot. It's definitely something that I've thought about. But I think for me, it just comes back to that fundamental of why am I doing this? Like, what gets me out of bed in the morning? And I think that ultimately, sitting here looking at that medal, it's obviously so special, and it's such a beautiful token of something. But it also, for me, it represents all the hard work, and it represents, what...
So you can't put a price on this baby, eh?
No, 100%.
You can't buy this. You might be the biggest billionaire in the world, but guess what? You don't get one of these. You can get one minted if you want, but you don't get one if you know what I mean.
You can't insure it, unfortunately. So,
can't you?
No, so I've just been... I'm not going to tell you where it is, but no. It's a bit of a niggly one. But for me, I think, I look at that and I just think that we've just done such a good job over the last 4 years that we've still got more to give, and I think the team and myself especially, I want to jump much higher, and I definitely feel like there's some unfinished business. So if that culminates in other games where I don't quite get it across the line, like I think that's sport, but also it's one of those ones where I want to try and see what I can do.
All of this kind of stuff, doing this kind of stuff, this is not going to distract you from what your business is. Your business is to get out there and train and find different ways, the minutiae, I think it is the word, isn't it? Because it's the little margins, isn't it? How do I spring? I mean, do I change my step? Do I change all of those tiny little things? Because when you're A-League like this, that's the only thing that makes the difference from here, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's definitely... Yeah, I mean, my life is different now. I mean, I've obviously got a lot more things than just jumping in it, and I think that's quite cool. But I think that's also where having a great team around me of people who I can refer to and bounce off. Just what do I need to do to maximise my performance, but also balance the opportunities I do have now. So it's cool. The team fully get that, and I understand that. At this time of year especially, I'm probably doing a little bit more stuff than I should be, but ultimately, when Christmas comes around, I'll be able to knuckle back down into training and next year sort of just get focused again.
I want to leave on, I've been very fortunate to go to a couple of Olympic Games and cover those and things like that, and I always say to every sports fan in the country, I wish I could transplant you to these things. And watching a New Zealander win a gold medal, it's only ever going to happen overseas. We'll never host the Olympics. So there's something extra special about it. And watching a Kiwi standing on that dais, and I mean, I'm an old patriot. I love our flag. I love the national anthem. When these things happen, I remember the first time that I was watching, I think it was Sarah Ulmer winning a gold in Athens. Hamish, I felt like I knew where I was from. All of a sudden, I felt, oh my God, that's where I'm one of them. And we're only this tiny little country. Did you feel like that as well?
Yeah. I've been to a couple of events recently where they have played the anthem, and it feels different now. Like, I mean, every time I hear it, I just get goosebumps. And I think that, it's just so special to be a part of I suppose, the global facing part of our country. I think that, people probably don't fully realise how well received we are overseas, and also how dangerous we're perceived as. I mean, when we turn up in the black singlet, I don't compete in the black singlet all the time. Like a lot of my professional competitions, so Diamond League and various other things, I'm wearing my Puma singlet, which is my sponsor. So for me, I only chuck that black singlet on when I'm doing the big ones. And it's funny because I compete with the same guys day in day out, but it's almost like when I chuck that black singlet on, like they suddenly sort of like sit up a little bit and really kind of see that as a bit of a
arrived, man.
Yeah, 100%. And so I think that's so cool to kind of see that, and also just the relationship that we have with every country. It's just so cool to be able to kind of sit there and we're almost everyone's number 2 nation. You know, they've obviously got their own country, and then there's New Zealand in behind. So I feel super welcomed everywhere I go, and I think it just makes me so proud to be Kiwi.
Well, I was going to say that to you back, mate, and you make us proud to be New Zealanders. That's how I feel when I'm watching you. When I saw that, you make us so proud. This is incredible. This is, as I say, a life-changing thing. You thoroughly deserve it. You're such a humble dude. Without a hair out of place, mate. Without a hair out of place. It's fantastic meeting you and getting the chance to talk to you as well. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, mate.
Yeah, hey, look, it's been amazing chatting to you over the last few months as well. So, yeah, thanks for having me on, mate.
You're a gold medal winner.
Yes.
How cool is that?
For the rest of my life.
DSPN.